There we go.
All righty. Here we go.
Guys, you hear me?
There we go. How's that?
Yes. Back. All right.
How's that? Little moving pictures down there?
Yeah, there you go.
Nice.
Yeah.
I should
got to get my reading glasses on too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all got to put on our spectacles.
Yeah,
right.
Real metal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Metal grognards.
Marking pictures.
Awesome backgrounds.
This is fun.
Yeah, now I got my mood lighting with my lava lamp, and I'm going to be bringing in. I got a big salt rock lamp, and we're bringing in two.
I've got one over there. That light's burned out. I got my lava lamp. That light's burned out. All my
all your lamps. You got to get some light.
Stuff is all burned out.
Yeah.
I need new bulbs.
I got lights around me. I look like a corpse with glasses. So
no, it's not so bad.
No, that looks better. You were getting darker and darker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I look over there. It's just a silhouette of Joe.
Only the shadow knows. Yeah.
Shrouded in mystery.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. It's all.
Oh, you
there you're gone.
There you go.
Weird, man.
Moving
Finally,
pictures, right? Moving pictures.
Dream come true. Oh. All right. Well, shall we
Let's get into the Rush deep dive here.
All right.
Greetings! This is David DePay from Burgess Jail, and you are listening to Heavy Metal Horror. Stay tuned for more metal and horror. Yow!
I am Montag, master of illusion. What goes up must come down, but not always.
Hey, I'm Chop Top, and this is Heavy.
And I am the Bull of Dread. Be ready.
And you are listening to
Heavy
Metal. Oh, kiddies, tonight we are taking another deep dive into one of the world's greatest bands. It's a favorite of all of ours. We are talking about Rush Deep Dive Part 2. I like to call this era of Rush the Golden Age. You know, I think it's fair to say that this is the grand culmination of their pushing the boundaries of musical exploration. And this is when they start sounding like a seasoned band who are quite comfortable with their increasingly complex songwriting. Whew. First thoughts on this era of before we get into album by album, Dreadbull?
Let's go ahead and name the records in this era. We have beginning with A Farewell to Kings, Hemispheres, Permanent Waves, Moving Pictures, and then culminating in the live Exit Stage Left.
Yes.
So this is era number 2 of Rush.
3 years, all this great music. I know. When you think about it, it's like, holy crap.
Yeah, they were on fire.
Yeah, just amazing. We have any just overall comments about this era as a whole before we start digging deeper there, Dreadbull?
It's certainly my favorite era of Rush. I mean, it just musically, it hits everything. It does everything right. There's a lot of nostalgia here, got a lot of nostalgia going back. Again, another band that I pretty much came to through you. I'm starting to see trends here. Like, you've introduced me to a lot of great music. Appreciate that.
You refuse
I really do
to listen to Kiss.
Well, everybody trips and falls occasionally, and you probably got hit on the head at some point, strayed from the path.
A lot of paint chips,
That's right.
I'll let you. That skeleton is going to stay there, but yeah. Anyway, love this era of Rush.
Yeah. I guess one of my comments too, guys, to go on that is, even though 2112 was their breakthrough, Moving Pictures was a breakthrough on even a grander scale.
Oh boy.
I think especially their, radio, it broke them, not only just Moving Pictures, but even before you got the radio staples. We'll get to those other albums, but they were so consistent during this time. and they were going to a different level. Like the one album before, Moving Pictures, and we'll get to it. That was like, oh, okay, we're getting us somewhere else. And then Moving Pictures just solidified kind of everything. And I know Montag has talked before how Rush had stated that Moving Pictures was their sound they were going for. They finally reached their, this is who we are, the identity.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Yeah, we'll dig in more deeply on each of these.
Yes, we
Yeah.
will. So let's start with 1977's A Farewell to Kings. Who wants to start off with this? I got track by track, so I'm happy to.
Yeah, well,
in
let's as a little background. They recorded this in Wales, Rockfield Studio in Wales. I think this was their first album that they recorded outside of Canada. They recorded this one in 3 weeks. 3 weeks.
Wow.
This was done. They mixed it in 2, and it was a done deal. Yeah. Every member of the band at this on this album added new instruments to their repertoire. They started wanting to branch out here. Neil added some orchestral bells, tubular bells, chimes. Geddy played some double neck bass and some synthesizer. Alex added some new guitars as well as a bass pedal synth. So they were all experimenting a little more beginning with this album. And as you said, this is going to go on and on throughout their careers, really, but particularly in this era.
Yeah.
I sense that as well. I really like the just revisiting these albums recently. And Farewell to Kings, that classical medieval intro to the title track, itself. And then I just thought with, opening again with a classic anthem, Rush style anthem. Geddy's, bass during a solo break was incredible, I thought, during that title track. And we're going to get, I got sort of like Montag on that album specifically. I have track by track, but I don't want to get carried away into it. But that just caught me right off the bat. That medieval classical intro and Geddy's bass, playing during that break and stuff. And I thought, here's another classic anthem. And yet, and it's so nice, how they kick off a lot of their albums. They have that immediate opening track that just gets you, pulls you right in, and there you are. So,
yeah. I'm cool with going track by track because we all have notes by them. That starts off. It's a great rocker, like you said there, Chop. And it reminds me a little bit of the compositionally of Bastille Day and that kind of that heavy rock kind of sound. And not that it's the same musical tones or notes, but that same kind of spirit, that big rock spirit. And I think you're right. It starts off the album with a catchy song, and it's big already, And
there's something about the mix of this album. There's a cleanness to this when you listen to this album. It is like it's hard to explain. It's a real joy to listen to this album because there's, like modern music is very, with all the modern technology, there's a lot of very rich sonically going on with modern music. This album is much more stripped down, and it's just a cleaner, and there's something really refreshing about listening to an album like this that's just cleaner. Every instrument is really pristine. It's not overdone. And it's nice to listen to this after you've listened to some modern stuff that's really rich and really attacks you a lot, with the sound.
Great point, Dread. I think also, they obviously been releasing recent years, the remasters and stuff. And then this sounds really good even on the remasters. But even that first initial analog record is just amazing.
I prefer the original.
It's not, there's nothing that's really overpowering. There's a nice balance throughout the whole mix, and everything kind of shines through.
Yeah, I remember getting this on vinyl and popping that in, and just like the sound was it just sounded. And for all these albums of this era, like their production values are absolutely stellar on every single album. They sound fantastic.
No, I agree. There's something to the stripped down nature, what would considerably stripped down compared to today's music. As you said, there's this onslaught of overdubbing and layering and things like that and overproducing. There's a simplicity to the production where every instrument is heard on its own, and the way it's produced, it's like it's a harmony, and like you said, it is clean. I agree with that. That's a great assessment. And that's what I love about this era and even the previous ones. There's something like Caress of Steel has that in a way, even though they're pushing those boundaries of sonic walls, but you still come away thinking, I can hear every instrument. I can hear everything on its own and together as that symphony. And
there's something about that just lets you just ease into the music. It just lets you relax into it,
right.
Hard to put into words.
Not overly produced, and it's kind of comforting in a way where it feels like an old flannel shirt that you've had on for 20 years, and you put it on.
Good way to put it. Yeah.
And that's exactly what it feels like. Yeah. The next track on the album, Xanadu, I think it is in. I don't know why. I don't know if I could rank it, but it's one of my favorite Rush songs of all time. I mean, what can you say? It's like it's just mixing fantasy and literature and these amazing soundscapes. I can listen to this song all day, and the buildup of it. You hear this kind of swelling, and especially with you get the sounds of the birds and Neil Peart's playing like the temple blocks, the wood blocks.
Yeah.
And it just kind of has this pastoral quality, and then it just comes in, and that the riff, the guitar chords, there's just something magical about this song, that all of them together are I don't know what pot they were smoking, whatever it was just the perfect pot, or wherever they were in Bangkok or whatever.
They're at one with the universe when they
this is stellar. And I have won people over to Rush by playing this one song. Like, I never heard of Rush, I don't know if I like them or not, I don't know. Listen to this song. And then they go, oh my God, I didn't know a band could sound like that. I'm like, yeah, this is what makes Rush great.
On that, you talk about Xanadu, and I'm naive. I thought those were Montag. I thought those were toms at the beginning that Neil was playing. I didn't know they were wood blocks. So you've educated me on that, obviously. But I thought that it just it kind of touches on the whole sci-fi kind of thing, musically and thematically, from what 2112 was. Kind of carried it on, and standout track for Neil's drumming, percussion playing. I mean, I was just like, I haven't heard that song in ages. I'm just like really digging in. I'm listening to him like, wow. I mean, not that any track he's ever played has never been stellar, but that one in particular on this album was just like the standout for me. His playing is incredible on that song. So,
well, unless I'm mistaken, who wrote the song is based off of the poem written
just going to bring this up.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead there, Dreadbull.
Yeah. The Kubla Khan, written by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, who, us Maiden fans are well aware, wrote Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. So yeah, the opening line was taken from that poem.
Right. And the references to the Milk of Paradise and those other lines. There are lines where he works in the imagery from the poem into the song, and right, it even mentions Kubla Khan, and in that. So it's like, that's when you have an appreciation for a band who, to the surface world might seem like nerds, like this technical nerds, because they like to read and are literate. God forbid that we know how to read and we're literate. But nothing better than a well-read band who can articulate these great themes. And this is the reason why literature lasts, and this is musical literature,
it really caught me. Another thing about this song caught me also is it's very spacey sounding, and the keyboards, I thought Getty's keyboards addition that definitely added to that whole spacey sci-fi kind of thing with that. And just a brilliant track. But I think Neil's drumming really shined on that. His use of percussion different stuff was interesting.
Yeah, it really added a nice atmosphere to that whole song.
Yeah, love it. Okay,
Closer to the Heart.
Oh, love this song.
All right, talk about it, Dreadbull. You start us.
I mean, I really I don't have a lot to say other than I just love. This is another one of those songs that you can just relax yourself into and just let it just let it have, this, I mean, this whole album, you just lay back and you just listen to it. And, did that so many times over the years. Like I said, got this on vinyl back in the day and just kick back and look at the art and just get lost in this music. And yeah, this is another track that's just a joy to listen to.
Well, I believe this is one where you talked about like the tubular bells or use of bells that Bert put in. I think this is maybe the first time he utilized them. And also, it was obviously the classic single. And I think maybe the first release, maybe off that, I can't recall. But I like how the song fades. I like how it goes up tempo and it still fades on that same. I thought it's really interesting, to fade out like that, but it still catches you, still enthralls you. It's beautiful. All the imagery that it creates with that as well. So yeah, very much.
I agree. It is a great song. I have heard it too many times though, because radio stations have a huge catalog of deep tracks to play from Rush that they can choose to play, and they play this ad nauseum, because it's radio friendly.
Yeah.
And it's just like you hear Limelight, Tom Sawyer, Closer to the Heart. Now, great songs all, but come on, radio, can you not play one different song from we have a band that has all these albums and you can't play a different track, but it's beautiful. It's got the acoustic stuff to it. It's just and that's the only reason why it's grown a little thin on me, is because it's just it's the song I've heard so much and I've just gotten tired of it. But it doesn't detract from the song. It's just I just like a piece of skin that's been rubbed too much. It's just just that's it. What do you think of Cinderella Man?
Yeah, for me, it's kind of right there with Closer to the Heart. Just another. I can't really think of anything unique to say about between these two songs. They're just very. I love them both. This one was written by Alex and Getty, based off of his thoughts off of a 1936 romantic comedy called Mr. Deeds Goes to Town. So
I know that.
What, that was Getty's thoughts on
Wow.
this particular movie. Is what he based this song on.
Well, yeah, that's Gary Cooper. Yeah, it's a great movie. I think that the music, it's a little bit light sonically, but the lyrics are pretty deep, and they stand in contrast to the lightness of the music. Like this song sounds like Cinderella Man sounds like it could have been on the B-side of 2112. In that, the tone, the sound of it does have that feel a little bit for me. As much as Madrigal reminds me of like Rivendell or something, and that even though it's got that old Rush sound, because it's kind of quiet and it's kind of contemplative, in a way, because it's a simple song, deceptively simple. It's got that kind of that keyboard. It almost sounds like someone whistling or maybe playing like a flute or something like that. Yeah. What are your thoughts? Yeah, Chop.
Well, I was just going to say, I was going on to we're not the skip Cinderella Man, but I thought on the Madrigal, you brought up a great point. I thought it was a very different Rush song to me, sounding even different for Rush, right? I mean, they're masters, but it's super mellow. But man, it was kind of refreshingly nice to hear something like that. This whole album, it's building up to all these different things, and Cinderella Man, and the classic closer we're going to talk about. But Madrigal to me was like, wow, that's really interesting, and it's deep, and it's super mellow for a Rush song, and I kind of appreciate it. I dug it.
Yeah, that was actually, they said that was a love ballad. That was Madrigal was written as a love ballad, apparently.
Oh, I never would have picked up on that. On that,
me neither. Yeah, that one kind of like.
If that's Rush love song, I'm pretty cool with that.
Yeah,
I'm good.
They Rushified a love song. Yeah,
that's right.
And his drums were recorded in an echo room on that particular track.
Oh,
give it a different effect.
Interesting. Cool. I like that. Well, we're down to one song left. The 10-minute Cygnus X1. Just in case you thought 2112 was a fluke, here's another epic saga. Sci-fi and fantasy collide and foretells what kind of musical direction Rush is speeding headlong toward. That was my note. on that
Yeah,
one.
well put. Well put.
Yeah,
Yes.
I really thought it was, revisiting 2112, the sci-fi concept, not the story, but the sci-fi. And then also interesting use of percussion by Neil again in this one. Nice fills and like some of the space in the song, what he does in the tom work and stuff. That was really interesting. Another highlight of Neil's incredible drumming I put down there. Maybe overall this album, I'm going to close it, maybe an overlooked, underrated album. I mean, you don't hear a lot of Rush fans are like, oh, you got to have Farewell to Kings.
Right.
It's moving pictures, it's whatever else. And it's, or 2112. You don't hear like Farewell to Kings, but in that same breath a lot of times. But it's every right and deserved to be ranking right up there with it. So.
Yeah, this one, Neil, it was inspired by an article he read in Time magazine about black holes. And so that's kind of what he took this little nugget, like Neil does, like the story we talked about in the first part where he, these two dogs that their producer, somebody had that, and he wove this whole entire saga around the names of these two dogs, and made a whole history about it. But the same thing here, an article about black holes. I'm going to make a whole, this whole epic piece, and that's going to span 2 albums and have all this mythology about it. And yeah, Neil has no problem grasping these grandiose ideas and just weaving it into these epic songs.
Yeah,
what a well depth that he had, unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh,
see,
man.
kids, this is why you need to learn how to read. Imagine what you could do by reading an article about a black hole.
Yeah.
Push out riff. Reading is fundamental.
Exactly.
Start there.
Yeah. It's just big. The Cygnus X1 song is big and rolling, and we see these elements on the songs like they did with the Necromancer and Fountain of Lamnath and 2112. These just big pieces that are just sprawling, and Cygnus has that same kind of feel. It has some great stops and starts and great moments throughout the whole piece, and it's just one of those ones where I find myself, I'm just like bobbing my head like, yeah. And I'm like, as a musician, I'm like playing along to it, and I've switched instruments, whether I wanted like, oh, if it's a drum fill, I'm going to do the air fill. But if it's like a really good guitar riff, I'm like playing that, if I'm playing a bass riff, and, so it is super contagious, this song. And, I don't know. We gush, and I gush over Rush, and I don't know. I guess sometimes I've been a loss for words. I should just probably shut up.
Sometimes it is hard to put your thoughts, your feelings about Rush into words, because it goes beyond that sometimes. Like their music is, and it's really hard to quantify it and boil it down to how you really feel about it.
An emotional response, right? Because you appreciate it on different levels, and we can talk about the lyrics and how important they are, because a lot of these, I make notes about what Neil writes about, themes that he writes about, and how he's a poet. And then we have these two amazing musicians who come along and take these poems to put them to amazing music that's adventurous and takes us on a journeys, but most of it is just gut reaction, or is a feeling. That's why I like the Fountain of Lamnath so much, or the Bridge in particular. There's just something about it that calls out to me, and I think that's what all great music does, is that it appeals to something in us that ties to us emotionally, sticks with us forever, and that's, Rush always does that for me, and this song and Xanadu are great examples of that emotional attachment.
Excellent.
Well, shall we continue on with the adventures of Cygnus?
Let's
on
move
to
on.
1978's Hemisphere. My note was, oh, look, another side-spanning song, a continuation from Farewell to Kings.
Put the same thing.
So here's Hemisphere, even more majestic in its storytelling and songcraft. It's like Clash of the Titans, both thematically and musically. I mean, how do you put into words this great, grandiose song other than it is rollicking? It is an adventure in and of itself. It's like reading the Odyssey. you are pulled into the story with gods and fighting and clashes and battles and moments of great intensity and moments of very quiet contemplative times with this music that kind of embodies those emotions and those classes. To me, this side can be studied by the best of, like we should have, I don't know if I didn't Doug Helvering said he did Hemispheres on his
Did he do
Patreon.
this one?
I thought he did that.
I think he did this. Yeah. I have to
Yeah.
go now. I guess we have to find out what he decided, because this is one of those albums where you got, 18, 19, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Where you're not going to get bored. You're going to be continually pulled in different directions. Like, oh, what are they doing here? Because you are not going to be listening passively.
Yeah.
It's an intensive listen. And
I really thought too, Montag, it was really cool how, you trail off with a great track ending farewell, and you're opening up your next album with the book too, sing this next one. I thought that was really cool on their part to, intentionally kind of do that. And that brings you right in, man. Hemispheres is such an underrated album. But yeah, I just, everything you said about the track, absolutely right there with you.
And by way of background for this album, they returned again to Rockfield Studios, where they recorded Farewell to Kings. This one was a little tougher. Neil struggled with this one. He struggled with the Cygnus song. He said it was very stressful to write. He only had it about halfway done when they entered the studio. Wow. He said he was tearing his hair out a lot trying to get this one. So this one did not come easy. Whereas, Farewell to Kings took 3 weeks. This one, they spent about 3 months completing this album. And said it cost about $100,000 to make this album. And you're talking 1978. So
that's big.
That was their most expensive album. They were so exhausted by the end. They took a six-week vacation just to recover from the recording of this album.
I'm surprised they would go into a studio without having the songs at least written and practiced.
I think it was just he was struggling so much with it that he just couldn't get it done prior.
Well, I remember seeing a documentary where they were talking about the recording of this album and how it drove them all crazy. There was moments where they wanted to stop, and because they were bringing in like timpanis and they were recording stuff outside and all these new instrumentations, and it was like this chaos, because this is the moment, I think, where they realized they had gone too far in their mania. Like, we are pushing these boundaries of progressive, prog and experimental and like symphonic, and as much as we can get complexity and all these things. And they said that was the moment where they said, we're not going to do that anymore. We're gonna kind of wind down from these grand experiments like we did with Hemispheres. And if you look at their music, they really did. The Hemispheres represents the last big boom of that side, whole album side kind of, songs.
Yeah, I did notice that myself in my observations, like going through discography, and I thought that you don't see another era. Like this was it. This was the end of it. And they really solidified, got to where they wanted to, and we'll talk about those upcoming ones. But
because of what they went through, that was just drove them crazy. So you were right there, Dreadbull Lips. That was just took them a long time, but 3 months doesn't sound like a long time. But $100,000, do you have any idea what that would equate to in 2021 money?
No, I have no idea. But
yeah. Well, I know like Nirvana's second album, In Utero, cost $1 million to make. At the time it was all said and done, the producer. But
nowadays,
so well, Circumstances, the second track. Well, side 2, because there are only 4 songs on this album. What I love about this is we have Peart's philosophy and metaphysics about the nature of life are in the forefront again. It's introspective and clever. The music follows the melody closely and is a bit heavier and melodic than their treatment of Cinderella Man in the previous thing. And we also get a French lesson in it as well.
True.
So if you want to learn some French, You know, the very little that I remember from my French class in
I
college.
failed French.
Yeah. Je voudrais beaucoup de fromage, s'il vous plaît. I would like a big bunch of cheese, please. That's about all I got. But we have this, you know, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And I love reading or listening to these lyrics now and hearing a lifetime of not like his own personal philosophy. You get that a lot in these couple albums, the next couple albums we're going to hear. And we start with him, you know, way earlier when he did like 2112 and was gravitating toward these themes from other writers, you know, Ayn Rand and stuff like that. But still, the theme is still the same, the struggle of the individual against society, as we're going to see in the next album that we talk about, you know, and the place of one person. And we're going to see that also, you know, some of these, the next album. I don't want to jump ahead too far, but we see that. And he's always introspective and he's always clever with phrase and can write things in a way that go, oh yeah. Yeah. So
and that was the ultimate message in the Cygnus, you know, this big grand sort of mythological story, but in the end it was all about the balance of the heart and mind in the human being, so for them to live well, you know. So he brought it all back to this very personal thing and his, you know, this personal sort of philosophical thing after going on this gigantic epic journey, you know. He makes it personal at the end.
It's amazing.
Absolutely brilliant.
I put on there with Circumstance, I put the rocker on the album, you know, because it just, man, I really like that melody. I love the chorus and Geddy's bass line. His bass work shines on that song. I mean, it's incredible. And he's everywhere on it. He's all over the place. So those are the notes that I had with it. But I always love the chorus. I just, man, love Geddy's bass work. And yeah, it's the rocker for me on Hemispheres when it really stands out.
And I'd read that this was kind of an experimental track for them, just a concerted effort to kind of break away from the prog. The prog stuff that they'd been writing a lot of, you know, recently. So that was kind of intentionally done that way.
Interesting.
Well, every other song on the record is pushing that prog element, you know. And as the next song, The Trees, one of my favorite when I was an early Rush fan, one of my favorite songs by them. I mean, there's so much song packed into 4 minutes and 45 seconds. You know, there's this poignant, elegant tale of the struggle for equality, you know, turned cancerous. You know, and it's perhaps a metaphor for the human condition. You know, these trees, the maples and the oaks, and everyone's just, you know, and it's the last line of the song that what sends it in the somber note. You know, and the trees are all kept equal. They pass a noble law that the trees are all kept equal by hatchet, axe, and saw. And it's like, oh, it's a dark ending song, you know, but there is so much power and majestic songwriting musically in this kind of a cautionary tale or you know, something along those lines. It's an elegant, beautiful song.
Yeah, I had. I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead.
Well, I had for The Trees in my notes. I had again a classical influenced guitar intro by Lifeson. Only Rush, you know, I have put here. Only Rush can write a song about trees and it rocks, right? So but interesting tom work by Peart in the middle of the song, I thought too, and everything that Montag saying is really beautiful and interesting. That symbolism of all these different types of trees and equality and everything that's going with that. Good concept behind that.
Yeah, I just have to laugh at, like, you know, the audacity to take on an idea like this, and, you know, the song about oaks and maples fighting with each other, and maples are bitching because, you know, the oaks are blocking out the sunlight, and so the maples unionize, and, you know, in this effort to have the oaks cut down. You know, it's like, who else would write this and make it good, you know, and not just a cheesy mess, like and make it a really great song.
Yeah,
right.
Only Rush could do that. I mean,
yeah, no other song, no other group, because it's treated with such seriousness.
Yeah.
that you're like, you buy into it immediately. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, okay, this is pure fantasy that connects directly with the human condition.
Mhm.
And it's like, it's certainly a metaphor for how we live life, or
Mhm.
human interaction, but it's the fantasy element that they'll also revisit with another war in the next album with another complete fantasy element. But it's just magically Rush. I don't know how else to say it. It's like, yes, who else is going to write a song about trees? Nope. Rush will. And you know
Rush will
what?
do
You're
it.
going to fucking love it because
Uh-huh.
it's a great song.
They're like the George Orwell of music, right? I mean, they write some wild stuff that's symbolic,
Bonkers.
and it really comes back and it makes you, reframe yourself and think about things and human conditions, which is very much poignant across their entire discography.
Yeah.
The human conditions and how we treat each other, and hope and love and fear and despair, and all those concepts. So,
Yeah. Wow. And
oh,
then we finish with La Via Strangiato. I find this to be a brilliant and rolling exercise in indulgence. I think one of their finest musical numbers. It captures their musical prowess and their nuance. It's frenetic one minute, it's fragile the next.
yeah.
And this again, it's a journey. It starts you off, it takes you in that beautiful like Spanish guitar in the
Oh
very
yeah.
beginning that
Right.
bleeds into this like crazy screaming solo, and then we have the kind of quiet like melody, like, oh, where are we going to go with this? And then it just brings us into the different movements of the song, brings us full circle, and some of it's kind of funny, and I think they were having fun with themselves, but boy, it's one of those songs where we've seen other people react to that, where they're like, oh my God, because we've listened to it enough to where I don't think we're complacent, but we appreciate it, we love it. But I'm trying to remember like the first time I heard this song and like how blown away I was. It's like,
Mhm.
oh my God, what can't these guys do? And that's what La Via Strangiato sounds like to me. It's like, Jesus, there's nothing these guys can't do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it might come across as a little self-indulgent, but I mean that's okay. And I mean, being a Dream Theater fan,
Mhm.
that's where I live. So, self-indulgence is not. I'm
Yeah,
no
and in the
stranger to
best
hearing
way
that.
possible. In the best way
Sure.
possible. Yeah.
Just go ahead.
Right. You guys can do it. You can do it. Do it.
display your skills. Go
Yeah.
ahead, let it
Yes.
loose, and they do.
Fly that flag and
Well,
see who salutes it, man.
I think what I put down here, guys, was this is Lifeson's baby to me. He shines through this whole track, and in my opinion, one of the top 2 Rush instrumentals ever done with them. And there's another one we'll get to later that I think is better. But amazing solo by Lifeson. That is just like Montag said, that screeching, squealing. It's like, oh my gosh, he's just incredible on that. It's a very strong finish to a strong album. So again.
Well, the solo is really passionate. I know Dreadbull, you love passionate solos. Where that song quietens down, where this is that's the barest of beat being kept, and then he comes in with that great solo. It's kind of soft and then builds. I mean, it's a remarkable solo. Brings you right
Just
in.
wrings emotion out of the guitar in that solo.
Good. Yeah.
So good.
Certainly. Yeah. I mean, Hemispheres it's like avant-garde. It is the culmination of Rush's experimentation. They push themselves to the brink of near insanity, but we all get to benefit from it, So I'm totally cool with it. And what we hear in their next album is kind of a beginning of refining these elements into more, I think, commercially accessible songs. Not as a sellout, not that means like anything negative, but I think the next album, Permanent Waves, 1980, was, I think, the first really big commercially, one of their more successful commercial albums, because it was out. I think the title or the opening track, Spirit of Radio, I think is what did it for them.
Yeah.
That song was everywhere.
Yeah, it was.
And I believe, unless I'm mistaken, this was the very first song I remember hearing from Rush. I didn't know who the band was, but I loved the song. I didn't quite understand it because I was 12 or 13 at the time. This whole idea about the whole concert halls and the last lyrics about this exchange of this kind of secret negative thing, and how music should be free, and all these kinds of things, and the cynicism of having these managers and kind of steal from you. I didn't quite grasp the depth of that at that age, but I don't know if you guys remember. Do you remember Chew Bops, the little bubblegum records that came out like with a little pink, like 3-inch bubblegum records that came out with miniature album records?
Yes.
Well, I had to look up what they were called because I had forgotten. But
I
know, but I remember having a few of them because they're at the local store. On the way home from school, there's a little tiny grocery store, and they would have them. I'm like, I'm like, so I had a little collection of them, and Permanent Waves was the only one I couldn't find, and I wanted it so bad. And my cousin Bill had one, and I was going to trade him. I think I had like Billy Joel or something like that. I don't want Pat Benatar. And then but his mom wouldn't let him trade. My Aunt Mary wouldn't let him trade. I'm like, come on, man. I said, because we had traded, and then she said, no, you're not. Give it back to him. I'm like, oh, come on. I never ever found the Permanent Wave Chew Bop. So, hey, if you're out there and you got a Chew Bop from 41 years ago, if you want to send one to us,
and the gum tastes like it's 41 years old too.
Yes, send it to Montag, Master of Illusion at heavymetalhorror@yahoo.com.
Hey, the gum that came in those packs back then never goes bad, so it would still
be
it's probably edible today.
Probably blow bubbles to this day. Yeah, but I mean,
Chew Bops. Oh, yeah,
Chew Bops
about that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that brought back the memories.
It sure did.
Yeah. And Spirit of Radio, I mean, it's got reggae beat into it. I mean, it's just rolling song, joyous. Really kind of great bell riding. Neil just doing this great kind of syncopated stuff on the bell. And it's just. We see Rush now moving into a way that you still see the musical prowess and complexity with those crazy drum fills and great solos, but now it's in a less experimental kind of mode where we've taken all of this skill. We know we have this amazing ability. Now we can channel it into a 5-minute song and blow your ears away when you hear it on the radio.
Go right ahead, Chop. Go ahead.
Oh, good. Well, I was saying, classic Rush anthem opener again. That brings you right in, busts right open from the start. Alex's triplet playing, it's like that's amazing in it. It's very positive. Back to Montag and uplifting. I love Geddy's bass line under solo too, under Lifeson solo. It was really awesome. So yeah, just your classic Rush anthem and one of the ones is a radio staple, and of course, life staple they put for many, many, many years. So,
yeah. You mentioned this move towards more concise music writing and stuff without compromising who they are. Like this isn't like, oh, we've suddenly sold out. Rush has never done that, and like this was of their own like free will, I guess you could say. This move. They weren't getting pressure from labels, it was just their decision to do this. And so I think that comes across when bands get pressured to make a certain type of music or to become radio friendly when they don't want to, their heart's not in it, and you can tell, you hear that, you can sense it when you're listening to the music. But Rush, this is still Rush through and through. There is no compromise just because they've changed their formula a bit and become in turn more radio friendly. They've compromised nothing, musically, and you hear it. Their heart's still in it, and this is fantastic album.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
and you just as far as acclaim, this reached 14 on the charts in the UK, 22 in Canada. So actually more popular in the UK. Unfortunately, only 51 in the US. So I don't know what's wrong with America.
Dumbass Americans. What the hell do they know with music?
Pretty they don't know.
Dumbasses.
We want that new WAP song. Yeah.
Well, you had mentioned Free Will, which is the next track on the album. Here's, I think, another classic slice of Peircean philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
It's casting very clever, disparaging remarks at religion, And the song pays tribute to what makes humans human. Again, it's the choice, the ability to, even if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice, and it is, which was not the original lyric, by the way. The original lyric was, if you choose not to decide, you still have to make a choice, or still have yet to make a choice. But I think Geddy Lee sang it differently, changed it in the singing. I think it's a much better lyric now.
Totally.
You
Very
have,
good.
yeah, you still have made a choice.
Uh-huh.
Choosing not to decide, that is a choice.
Yeah.
And here it is. I mean, it can't be more blatant than the will, everything that's been building up, the Ayn Rand philosophy, the human will, the standing up, and this will continue into other songs in the next record as well. But here it is, Free Will. I mean, it's blatant. His philosophy is right out there for the world to see, and it's just an awesome song. I mean, there's that great break where they kind of go into this halftime kind of thing after the solo. It's just it's a brilliant song.
It really is. Neil's like, his ability to say a lot in a few words, and pack so much meaning into these songs it's a testament to his poetic side, his philosophical side. He's just so brilliant at that. Like, nobody can say more with fewer words than Neil. Maybe Robert E. Howard, he's pretty good at it too, but he, that's a real art form in itself, and he is masterful at it.
Yeah, I'd like to see him, what he could do with some classic Kiss lyrics. Neil Peart rewrites Love Gun.
What does Neil think about in the morning I raise my hand?
It's a whole different thing.
Well,
going echoing the fantasy theme of the last album with trees going to war. Now we're going to war. Clouds are going to war in Jacob's Ladder, which I love this song. It is it's a fantasy extraordinaire. Clouds battling, and I think the music swirls like these combative vapors. With the tiny brightness of the bright unbroken beams. The musical aftermath is complex. Where it starts off slow, you got the keyboard, and then the guitar riff over it, and then Neil comes in with the percussion. There are 3 different time signatures being played that all work out mathematically. When you add up all the numbers at the end, when it comes back into this kind of symphonic where they're all playing at the same time. But in that break, there were 3 different time signatures. And I remember I saw an article by an interview with Neil Peart where he talked about that. And they actually had the music written out. And he says that's how he had to remind himself, because he was playing these really off beats. This is one of the songs that I could never get, like intuitively when playing as a drummer. And I taught myself how to play, and it's just like, what the fuck, man? I'm like, it's because it doesn't make sense because it's off mathematically. I'm trying to listen to the other music, instruments, and it's not going to work. But he said he had to count the number of the beats and the measures because he knew, okay, at 36, it's all going to make sense. And that's how they all kind of got together. I'm like, Jesus Christ, man. And so to this day, I'll listen to it. And I'm like, I feel like Steve Martin in the beginning of The Jerk, where he's like Navin Johnson, and you can't get there. I just can't get this rhythm. And that's exactly how I feel. Like these songs are so depressing, and he's just trying to keep a beat. Jacob's Ladder makes me feel like that. This kind of inability to keep a beat because it is just so off the track for me. But that's why I love it. And it's simple. It's simple, misleading, but God, when you look at math behind it, it's genius.
It is.
Yeah, and just like Neil is masterful at lyrics, Alex and Geddy are just masters at evoking the emotion of the song or the atmosphere that the song needs, and adding all these little details, that make it more than the sum of its parts. Again, we say that all the time with Rush, but it's true. Everything they do is way larger than the sum of these 3 dudes making music. And it's
and here's where we see that musical madness from the album before coming to play in a stripped down version where on the surface you can't tell how crazy complex it is until you start looking at it, the stanzas and the math. You're like, okay, your mad geniuses are still here. They're just changing the direction of the madness, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No.
And I think subconsciously you getting that, like you know something interesting's going on, and it keeps your interest because something unusual is going on underneath. And even though you might not be aware of the timing and all the the gymnastics that are going on, your ear knows it, and that's what keeps you going back, and that's what keeps these songs fresh after.
I really thought with this song also it was ominous kind of intro, dark almost. Really, it sets the tone. It was different for them. But then throughout, as the song goes on, like so many Rush songs do, it's upbeat, has an upbeat feel to the end, and that's the thing. They have these different textures. They can start out with this atmospheric kind of thing, and maybe a little dark, maybe a little medieval or something else, and then it just builds it. It's just positive and upbeat, uplifting. And Geddy, I think I owe a lot to Geddy Lee on most of Rush's albums, just because I think it's his vocal style. I think that brings that uplifting feel to most of Rush's songs and stuff. So, and it's not that Pert's lyrics are all depressing, because they're not, and they're brilliant. It's just that I think Geddy brings that extra, that uplifting kind of thing with that positive message. It comes more across from his vocals than, like I said, just not one individual member writing or anything like that, just his vocal style. I think it just brings that. So,
yeah. And you can hear elements when it gets quiet and it just become more vocal, and there's this background kind of droning. It reminds me a little bit, there's elements of Xanadu I'm hearing in that with the songs and the sound pieces that they're bringing in. And like, I can almost hear, it's almost like the very beginning of Xanadu. There's this kind of a similarity that I think is beautiful, in that. And I'm not sure if it was intentional or just because they love that so much, but it just fits the song, but it's just there enough to notice it. That's great. Well, more French. Now with the next song, Entre Nous, Between Us. At first blush, I think this song could be easily dismissed as fluff. But the lyrics are beautiful. And as you said, Dreadbull, can say more with fewer words. And here's this song that focuses on the need for individuals in a relationship to maintain their individuality and their space so that they can grow together, and almost like the irony. Yeah. And that's what makes the song for me. There's this kind of lovely part that the lyrics play in the song more than the music for me. And it's why I'm hearing the beautiful message, the poetry in his words. Like, this is one of the few Rush songs where the lyrics kind of override the music, because it's a quiet song. The next two, this one and the next one are kind of quiet, but that's what I really love about this.
Along that same what you're talking about, Montag, I put in there, I really love the lyrics on this. Talk about hope, love, accepting differences, living as one. I thought it's an underrated song, and I love the chorus. So, and it is that one where the lyrics do outshine the music. But it's beautiful, beautiful piece.
Yeah, this is one that I didn't listen. I didn't listen to it a lot back in the day. Kind of get through the first few songs and kind of skip the end a little bit. But yeah, going back now and re-listening and delving in a little more, it got a much more of an appreciation for the message here. And the song doesn't have musically isn't going to grab your attention and get you nodding or bopping or anything. But yeah, you can go back. It's a little more mature of a
introspective
here and interest. Yeah, for sure.
It's a quiet song, and that's okay to have quiet. Those are things we admire in so many other bands, like Dream Theater, and their ability to play symphonic and quiet and melodic, and not just heavy metal. And that's what Rush is showing here. These kind of quiet moments, like with Rivendell, in the second album, and that's good because this shows the range of what they can do. And if anything, I think this might be the Rush love song for me. This shows Neil Peart's version of what love is,
Mhm.
is the importance of still, again, the theme of the individual in relationship with one another, and how important it is for the individual to maintain that sense of individuality so that the couple, two individuals, can grow. you know, it's a very mature, serious look at that. And God, it's a beautiful song.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, Neil's such an interesting guy, man. If there's
Yeah.
one guy you'd love to sit down and have an hour to talk to, my God, it would be
Yeah.
Neil.
Is an hour enough, guys?
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Well,
It's just,
no, you know,
yeah. The Rush was my
a
bucket
week.
list, and
Yeah.
it when he passed, it was just, I mean, it took me over a year before I would listen to Rush. And there are parts of me where I watch him and now I can celebrate him.
Mhm.
But if it catches me in the wrong way, then I know I'm gonna tear up again. I'm just like, my heart's just gonna bust all over again. Like, I just wanted that. I wanted to talk with him, and not as a gushy fan because he hated that, but
Mhm.
whenever I listen, I watch his interviews. My God, he's so thoughtful and articulate, and able to talk about things in such a way that you could just sit and listen to him for days. It's like, oh yeah. And his books are the same way, just allowing him to explore these things, whatever's on his mind, and it comes through his lyrics the same way. Now, Different Strings is the next song after Entre Nous, where again it's another quiet song. I find this song to be a little bit less successful than Entre Nous, but what I like about it is that the music is tight and it's minimal, and because there's this kind of minimal approach, and it's so kind of succinct and managed and stripped down, that's what makes it effective and interesting to me, because there's this quiet playing on the drums. You can hear license solos, which are kind of just minimal, and it's just a quiet song, and I appreciate it on that level.
I had in my notes just beautiful ballad, like maybe one of the real first ballads I think that Rush ever did. And I was watching a lyric video of it, earlier today to refresh me a little bit on it, and I was like, wow, this is a beautiful freaking song, man. And you said, yeah, it's minimalistic and the musicality, but for some ring, this song really touches me. And I don't know. I think it's beautiful. Ballad, that ballady, because you don't get a lot of ballads with Rush, right? So I think with this was, one of the best ballads ever. You can say a Rush ballad. So
Yeah, this song, like Entre Nous, revisiting it, I appreciate it a lot more. Maybe it's a result of a lot of the bands that we've covered recently. We've covered a lot of heavy, very Overkill and Testament. We've covered a lot of heavy bands and stuff, so it was really nice to come back to Rush. And I mentioned Cinderella Man and some of the easier listening tracks, and songs like this are just like, they're a nice break from some of the heavy stuff that we've listened to lately, and I appreciate it a lot more. And maybe you mellow a little bit with age too. So back in the day, these didn't really speak to me
right
at the time, but
right
now, man,
yeah. And just like in Hemispheres, this album is a beautifully mixed album. The recording, the sound of it is really, really wonderful too. Everything is
absolutely,
you can hear everything
Mhm.
on its own, and it's clean and doesn't sound all cluttery, overproduced. As the song, like Different Strings, is going to tell, every little anything added to it, it's just so quiet, which I kind of like, and it sets up nicely the end of the album. Natural Science, because it also starts off very quietly, with the strumming guitar and this kind of distant, echoey vocal about this microscopic universe, this microbes, and Natural Science. I think it's one of their best songs, in that it has that moment of looking from the microscopic universe, then applying that scrutiny to our own, and with this ending with a pleading for those in the arena to take care of what we have on this planet, with science and nature and technology and all these things that we're experimenting with and play with, because everything that we know is really fragile. All life is really fragile, and we got to take care of it. The message is great, but then the music of natural science is hard, and that's got that great rhythm. And it's that off time signature, and then finishes with this big kind of flourish. It is a song. It's a great bookend, and it's a long song. I would close, I think, 10 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it takes the time to tell its story well. And I was happy. I think Chop Top and I we got to see Rush on the
That's for Echo.
Test for Echo, and they played this song
Yeah.
on that tour, which was really great because that's the first time I'd heard that song live. So,
in my notes, I had, along with the music and the rhythmicality you're talking about, Montag, I really liked the polyrhythms in the song. All this stuff going on. Man, it's just, against the lyric background, like you talked about, but man, the rhythms are just going totally hard and edgy and, opposite of what the lyrical content actually is. So, yeah.
Time changes galore. Time changes galore.
Yeah, shoes. Great song.
Yeah, this is one of those songs for me that got kind of lost in the archives of so much Rush over the years, and going back and revisiting, like, man, I'm like, oh, I forgot how good this song is. I love this song, everything about it. Great long track, lots of bits and pieces and parts. They all work though, and I just had forgotten about this song. It's kind of buried, last track on the album and stuff. But man, going back, like, wow. This is a great track. Yeah,
super great fills.
Great
Neil
track.
Peart's got these great long fills, and you can hear everything. I mean, again, the mixing, the producing is beautiful. It sounds like it's right there, but it's not in your face. It's not blowing you out. But I listen particularly to the drums, and I can hear the drums one going from my right ear to my left when he does these big long fills. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's just, yep.
Yeah, it's just candy for the ears, man. Rush is just it's good for the ears.
Yes, it is
soothing. Even the heavy stuff is soothing.
I put as a note on this, guys, that to me, this was, at this point, was definitely her most accessible, radio-friendly album. Of course, leading into the next one. So, but vocally on this whole album, my biggest thing, Geddy shines on this album. Like, he really just, there's something about, I don't know, his vocals are just very warm. He's kind of coming to his own, maturing some more vocally in his range, and it just, I caught that listening to the album again. I was like, wow, Geddy's really kind of coming into his own.
Well, the shrill aspect is gone.
Yeah,
right.
That last time you hear it, even on 2112, and on the, you hear that kind of shrillness to his voice that is suddenly, maybe a little bit in Farewell to Kings. But by the time Hemispheres comes around and Permanent Waves, that's pretty much gone. Like that shrill, maybe the way he changed his vocal style or they're singing in different keys. But I think it's where you're hearing that warmth is coming through because he's not reaching for those stellar notes.
He's still hitting high notes,
but he's still hitting high
shrill.
Notes.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So maybe his voice has just changed, or he kind of grew into it, or by singing learned how to hit the high notes without sounding shrill. Something.
I wonder if that had something to do with also they were getting out of their experimental phase, like right along with his vocals. Like, maybe it had something to do with that. They were getting out of that musicality with the experimental, and Geddy's vocals got warmer and matured more, with the sound as it progressed with that. That finishing point. But
yeah, might have been a conscientious, attempt to fit the music better that they were playing.
Yeah, or just over time, your voice changes in time, and
right.
So it could be any number of those combinations. So Geddy Lee, if you're listening, please come on our show. Let us know. Tell us about how your voice changed from the earlier albums, which is a very distinctive sound, to these albums. Please, Alex Lifeson, come on board, please.
We want to know.
We'd love to have you on board.
We're the best podcast you've never heard of.
That's right. That's exactly right. One day you will. Well, this next album, 1981. I mean, Moving Pictures. This album is very personal. to me. Back in the day when I was at my horribly fundamentalist and legalistic Ixian church, all secular music was the devil's music. So I was, kind of listening to all kinds of Ixian rock, some of it pretty good, some of it not, bands like Petra and, I wasn't listening to Amy Grant or anything like that. God, thank God. So as I've always had struggled with my faith, even at that time when I was 16 or so, struggling, I was wondering why a song or a band or an album should be feared so much. Like if a song is going to make me throw my faith away, then I really didn't have faith to begin with. That was my thinking, which was, I didn't share that with anyone, but it was kind of radical, for myself to take this bold step. So I took my money and I went to either Fisher's Big Wheel or Kmart or something, and I bought this album. It was my first secular album that I'd ever bought for myself. And in a way, it was kind of like a moment, a move of rebellion. It was a move to kind of prove my point that listening to it didn't make me worship the devil or kill babies or do anything stupid that, the preacher said was going to happen if we fill this ourselves with Satan's music. It didn't do anything of the sort. And I thought, okay, well, the stuff they're teaching is just a crock of shit, So this, Moving Pictures, because of that, and it was just an important album. And this is the album I taught myself how to play drums on. I would just play this album over and over again and play to it. And I got most of the album down. There's a couple things I can't quite get right. There's a little bit in the little beginning of YYZ and a couple things, but like Tom Sawyer, I had down pretty much pat, and Red Barchetta, a lot of the songs I had down. But so this album, other than it being stellar, it has a lot of emotional attachment for me. So I'll stop with my diatribe and let you guys take over and start talking.
Awesome, buddy. Awesome story. Yeah. Great.
Yeah, we could probably do a whole show just on the 80s, the satanic panic, the Christian churches, effect on music of
I
the
was
day
like
and
this
stuff.
the whole fucking time. Like,
it was a big thing back then.
Yeah. Well, the
It was.
D&D. I mean, my dad thought we were,
D&D.
going to be running down the sewers playing, killing people and killing each other because he heard a story about someone in college, basically doing a LARP.
A lot of fear mongering.
Yeah, exactly. And he thought for sure I was going to be worshiping the devil, just grudgingly let me play D&D with
a lot of ignorance.
Yeah.
So what misinformation and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, so what can't you say about this album? Honestly, I mean, it may not be the only Rush's perfect album, but on a very short list of perfect albums as a whole, there's not one remotely dud track on this album. I mean, it is quintessential Rush. It is like, it's like Operation Mindcrime for Queensryche. To me, it is maybe the perfect Rush album. There are other albums which I think I have emotional attachment to, and I love even sometimes more. But of all of Rush's catalog, this may be their perfect album.
Yeah. I think that you're leading off with the lead singer. Tom Sawyer. Enough said. But maybe overplayed, but classic. And any, like you talked before, Montag, anyone that knows anything about Rush has heard Tom Sawyer. It's been in numerous films. It's been on numerous, playlists. It's been whatever. But yeah, you lead off with that, and then Red Barchetta. I mean, I don't even have comment for that because that's another radio staple that's been playing, a live staple. But still, a phenomenal song with licensed riffing and everything under that. YYZ. This is the best Rush instrumental. This is where the whole entire band shines. I just think in their catalog, this is you think instrumental with Rush, you're like YYZ. That's it. And especially Peart's drum work on that. So,
well, Dreadbull, what do you got to say about Tom Sawyer?
Yeah, I mean,
let's go track by track. Why
not?
Oh
yeah,
sorry about that, guys.
Tom Sawyer.
Don't you ever do that again, Chop Top.
Excited.
Yeah. What again? This album, I struggle to put into words like what the greatness of this album. Like, how do you describe it? Like, it's one of the best albums of rock metal ever. Just period. It's got to be a top 5 of all time in that genre. Yeah, Tom Sawyer. I mean, everybody knows that. Everybody knows the drum fill in the middle of
Right.
that damn
Everyone
song.
plays air
Everyone,
drums to it.
yes, it's
Everyone becomes Neil Peart
legendary.
for 10 seconds.
Yeah, it is legendary. You watch the concerts, everybody in the front row is playing, air drums to that fill.
Right.
Yeah, there's just something about the whole, again, that alchemy that comes together in this album. The sounds, the tasteful use of synthesizers in this album, the mix. It's just magic. And this is lightning in a bottle. This is everything they've ever done culminates right here, and there's nothing better. There's nothing better than this album, in my opinion.
Geddy Lee said this was the album or maybe Neil Peart. This is the album where they finally felt like they had come into their own. Like, this is the band of the album that they wanted to sound like, or this is how they wanted to sound. And it took a lot of experimenting to get to this point. And you'll still hear those elements of experimentation in here, but it is tight and syncopated, or tight, well-crafted songs that have not been paralleled in anything they've done before or since, I think, in some ways. This is a pinnacle moment. This is a come to Jesus album, and because of that, everyone knows Tom Sawyer, and since we've all talked about that, and Red Barchetta, as you know, Dreadbull, I could not get enough of this song.
Oh my God! Yeah,
as we would play this side of the album while we were playing some good old baseball on Commodore 64, Race Destruction.
But the weird thing about this, Red Barchetta, Tom Sawyer, we've heard these songs thousands and thousands of times, and I'm not tired of it. I have never gotten tired of these songs.
Right.
No.
Every time I hear it, it pulls me back in, and you're playing right along. The air drums come out. Like, there's something about this, you never freaking get tired of it. And I don't know how that happens. How do you make a song that it's impossible to get sick of? But they did it.
Because a lot of other bands I love,
good.
Chop.
No, I'm just saying it's very rare with so many artists that you don't hear of that. And I agree with you though, Dreadbull. I don't get tired of those tracks at all. I can, I don't listen. I hate regular radio, so I absolutely despise it. But if I could hear it, come on a station, anything, and people, at a party or something, you're like, all right, I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
But there's so many other artists and stuff, and like, oh God, I never pour some sugar on me. I never want to hear
almost any song, that you hear it enough, you're going to get sick of it. But there's not a song on this entire album.
For some odd reason, this album just, I'm tired.
You can't describe it. You can't
I can't even
define how that
my words
happens. Yeah.
Sorry, Barchetta was it's fine. I mean, I think we're all discussing the same things because we all feel the same way about this record. I mean, I think obviously my favorite song was Red Barchetta. Definitely probably in my top 5 of Rush songs, because it still is so joyous. I mean, it's a great sci-fi story about the thrill of breaking a law and driving a car. And the music mimics the car's acceleration at times. There's this kind of screeching sound that Lifeson gets with the guitar, and there's this big, wonderful drum sounds, and this action, this story taking place, and it fills your heart, it pumps you, gets you going, and you feel that acceleration through the lyrics and through the music. It's just, again, here's Neil Peart and his fantasy science fiction, love for science fiction. And I think this was based on a short story called A Sunday Drive. I don't remember who.
A Nice Morning Drive by Richard S. Foster.
Okay.
Yes.
So another great song taken from other science fiction writer. Thank you, Richard Foster. So.
Yeah, listening to this song and playing games on the Commodore 64 in your room back in the day when we were just youngins.
Yes,
one of my great memories. It was so good. This whole album, but this song in particular, you must have just played it over and over. Just this one.
Oh
song.
God, yeah. And I remember back in the day where I bought the album, and then you'd make cassettes of the album, because my stereo had a cassette player, so I'd record the album. I think I bought like a 60-minute cassette or something like that, and then had enough room because this album's only like 45 minutes, something like that,
Yeah.
44. And I had enough room to put Red Barchetta at the end like 3 more times. So I'm like, yes, I get to listen to it 3 times in a row at the end, like, you know. Yeah. And another next song, YYZ, one of their more, I think, popular and well-known instrumentals.
Yeah.
It is infectious and energetic. It has a great interplay and back and forth between the bass and the drums, where it's in that kind of reggae. It goes back to this kind of reggae feel, and then you have this, bass line, and then Neil Peart comes in with the drum fill, and then go back through it. Oh, here's another bass fill, and then Neil has a more complicated drum fill. Oh no, wait, we're gonna go a third time through with an even longer extended bass fill, and then this huge drum fill. It's like, oh, okay, guys, you just blow me away. Yeah, I'm just gonna sit here in a puddle of my own, like,
fluids.
Yes, puddle of my own fluids and musical inability, and just said, like, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, how often does an instrumental get popular, like airplay, radio play? How many bands made an instrumental that people that becomes popular? It's a very popular song from this album. It just doesn't happen.
No, you're right. What's interesting in that, they did the Rock in Rio and they did YYZ live on that. The people are singing the instrumental stuff, the entire crowd. And I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It blows me away that that muscle memory to be able to, put that to just the music.
Mm-hmm.
No lyrics, just singing right along to the music lines. I was like blown away by that. Impressive.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This first side ends with Limelight, another one of those songs that is played on the radio all the time. And here's Peart's treatise on the shallowness of fame and the very real struggles of living on that lighted stage. And what I like about this song is he puts the onus back on the listener, like to say, hey, if you think this is all great, you'll think differently if it happens to you, you know. And those lyrics, like, I cannot pretend a stranger is a long-awaited friend.
Oh, brilliant.
And it's, you think, okay, how many, he's doing all this press and meeting fans and meeting people, and it succinctly ties in or makes that emotional component, or the lack of, here's the reality of it is, it's like, and that's why, he was a very private person and didn't, kind of eschewed all that fame. And I wonder how much of that, because they blew up on this album, as much as 2112 got them big, right, this moving picture sent them into the stratosphere.
Yep.
And so he was already struggling with this sense of the dealing with fame and fans and things like that. And I was always cognizant of that, even in my fantasies of trying to meet Neil Peart one day. If I ever met him, it was always couched in this idea where I wasn't approaching him as a fan, but he would be he'd like to stop by the little diners and stuff on the road. I think I mentioned this the last time we did, Rush.
Yeah.
And that was always that kind of thing where we would just talk as two guys about on the road. He'd tell me about his motorcycle, and I would just, it'd be hard not to say, I know who you are, man.
He really was a journeyman, though. He really was a journeyman. Just loved to explore, and his, that's how he decompressed himself a lot, and still came out with some amazing lyrics along the way. But the lyrics in this song are I mean, they're cynical in a way. They're dark, and and it's like, light of this whole life fame is ephemeral. It's not the real thing. He says, get beyond the real revelation behind all this is living life, not this pretend facade that you see, but get on with your life and live it. That's the message. And I can't think of anything more Peartian, coin a phrase, than that.
I just love his philosophy in general. I mean, I love his take on life and his philosophies. They're so interesting, and I tend to agree with almost all of them, if not all of them.
Deep, so deep. One of those deepest people I've ever read anything about. His lyrics, and I mean, just what an inspiration! What a class act.
Yeah, how many people eschew that fame that so many other people strive for? Like, they want to be famous just for being famous sake. Like, I'm going to be a famous TikToker. I'm going to do this. Like, for what? Like, what good's it going to do you? And I think
Yeah,
that's the
attention.
question he would ask that. Like, yeah, what good is this attention going to get you?
Yeah.
You know, what are you doing with your life?
Yeah.
Your sole goal is to get more followers.
What's the destination? Yeah. What's the destination?
Exactly. Like, you're going to show off your wardrobe. I mean, why are you doing these videos? Like, what are you trying to show? You know, you're just an attraction. And
that's what creates, flashes in the pan. That's why, and this is why Rush lasted. This is why they had a 40-year career, because that wasn't why they were doing what they were doing.
Mhm.
They had a much deeper, more grounded sense of what they were trying to accomplish. It wasn't.
I don't know of any other. I don't know of any other band that in a trio aspect. Yeah, hell, just a band member has been together that long. The original band, like other than of course we know Peart came in after the first album, but still, let's consider him. He's
the new guy. He's the new guy.
Yeah.
but can you? I can't think of any other band that never had lineup changes.
No.
Amazing. What an amazing journey. So.
Yeah. Well, side 2 begins with, I think it's an understated song that feels like a little slice of life in 2 cities, but points to a larger understanding of connection of humanity's ability to not appreciate what's in front of them. Again, more philosophy for you, Dreadbull. Camera Eye, which I really love this song, and you probably never are ever going to hear it on the radio. One, because it's 10 minutes long, but there's just something about it. Again, it's a simple song, and as far as its melody, but the melodies that they play, the several melodies, are compelling, and driving, and then bring you back from these moments of great rush, and then bring down to kind of quieter moments that allow you the lyrics to come through. Oh, here's what we're missing, the rain falling from the leaden sky, and we're in London, and we're in New York, and we're all these places. And there's just something about this song that I just really, really love, and hard to fully explain.
Yeah, it's just the poet in Neil, can walk through a city and just sense the rhythms of the city and everything going on around him and be inspired by it, and put pen to paper and come up with some more brilliant lyrics that encapsulate that, and then turn it over to Alex and Getty, and they do their magic, and it's more of the same brilliance.
Well, I put in my notes that I really like the guitar line and the melody in that song, Camera Eye. I just, again, going back what you're talking about, Dreadbull, Getty and Alex putting in their brilliance underneath Peart's lyrics is just, there's another prime example. So yeah, that guitar line, that melody, yeah, that hooked me on that song. Really like it.
All right. The next track, this is a spooky track, man. Witch Hunt. This is the next installment of the Fear sequence of songs. Or is this the first one? Wasn't there? No, this might be isn't this the first one? The first song of the Fear. There's like a whole series of songs that he did that were called, Fear. And I think this might be the first one.
Yeah. I've got it here. Signals is the weapon. The enemy within, grace under pressure. And then freeze from vapor trails are the other 3 parts. So yeah, this is the first.
So here's this, I think, an understated, or this it's about the destructive nature of intolerance and ignorance, set in the guise of a literal witch hunt. And the great lyrics that almost feel like you're reading a horror story, and you can sense it with the music, the instrumentation, with that kind of discordant xylophone and this ominous kind of a thudding timpani or something in the background, where it's just kind of this relentless boom, boom, like this. Here comes the throng of villagers with their torches, and they're going to burn the local witch, and then the lyrics start talking about all these things, and again, Peart's working on multiple levels: the literal witch hunt, the metaphysical or metaphorical witch hunt, and that's what makes the song so brilliant. It's such a dark song.
It is.
Yeah. And again, there's a great big drum fill, and heavy synthesizer, and boy, just a fantastic song.
Yeah, I think the first time I listened to the song, it scared me. Like it truly, it creeped me out. Like they did such a great job, creating an atmosphere, the atmosphere that goes with the lyrics of this song, and that it might have been that discordant stuff going on. Yeah, that this is a scary, dark song, and man, they did an amazing job just
Yeah.
building that whole atmosphere.
Right along. I had my similar things in my notes. It's a dark song. It still sounds positive. And maybe I put down to Getty's vocals again. His vocals really matured by this release. This was like the epitome of the amalgamation of all the years and experimentation. And finally, it's a warm album. That's what I have mostly through it. But there was what's interesting on that song, Cowbell. I heard a cowbell by Near Peart. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Cowbell being played by Peart. But yeah, again, and this album, this was, 2112 was a big breakthrough, but Moving Pictures was that upper echelon, like Montag talked about. It's a grander scale, especially radio and friendly and more and a consistent album. There's not a bad track on it. So
yeah. That leads us to the last song on the album, Vital Signs, which is for them. They love. I was actually reading an article today about Vital Signs. What Geddy Lee said, they loved this song because it was so quirky, and it took a while for this song to catch on for fans because they weren't sure what to do with it, and they would play this for like said that by the time they had it on their third tour, they toured with they kept on sticking it in the set list because they were trying to push it, saying, listen to this song, it's a good song. And here it is, this song about this juxtaposing human and technological metaphors, and I kind of the offbeat nature of the melodies on the upswing, like a reggae, again, this reggae beat, and they're kind of carrying these themes. And I know that's something that the band always did. If there was something they were into at the time, or Neil would travel to Africa and bring these African rhythms into an album, or his drum playing, or like they were really into reggae at this last couple albums. They were listening to reggae. They're bringing some of these sensibilities into their music, and you hear it on Vital Signs, along with that kind of quirky synthesizer going back and forth and kind of keeping the melody, and then with this kind of weird time change, or weird guitar strumming, again, the reggae influence. Even some of the, I think, Peart's playing like a timbale or something in there. So bringing this different kind of percussive sounds. But it's a weird sounding song for Rush, but that's kind of what I love about it. I just love the song. Again, another got some big fills in it, big drum fills. Fantastic song.
Yeah, totally agree. It's a weird song. Took a while to grow, and again, going back and re-listening. Maybe I've just been in the Rush mood, but all these songs, that were maybe a little, I was lukewarm on back in the day. They've really hit me. They're landing now, and I'm really enjoying this revisiting of all these albums. And yeah, I love this song too. So
it's like
what an album.
You're coming to them in a different way. It's not like you didn't like them, obviously, but it's
definitely.
almost like they're adding depth of appreciation for some of the songs that you didn't have before. And that kind of, in a way, it's almost like it's like your first time again. You're like really like, oh my God, this song is so much better than I remembered it. And it ups your appreciation for the band as a whole,
Yeah.
Yeah, I had, on Vital Signs, I had, it's offbeat, reggae-like guitar rhythm by Alex during the verse intro, especially a really cool bass line by Geddy under Alex's guitar playing. I thought he's kind of like, again, in his groove, in his moment, total off timing than what Alex is doing or what Neil's doing. They always did a lot of it, but I really like that bass line by Geddy under that. And yeah, that's a song that really grew on me over time, and I appreciate it so much more.
Yeah, probably the most progressive track on this album, I would say. Little touch of progressive.
Yeah, this is it's progressive experimental. Yeah, but it fits in with everything else. It doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. It all fits sonically, thematically, lyrically, musically. It's all there.
Man, perfect album.
Yeah, it is. It's Rush's pinnacle. I mean, they have great albums coming. We have a lot of great albums to talk about, but
Right.
there's just something about this album that just stands out as a masterpiece on every front. And we've all said it. There's not much more we can say about it.
Yeah.
Much.
But yeah, I can't come up with enough words to say about it anyway. So
To punctuate the end of this golden age of Rush, we have the 1981's Exit Stage Left, the live album, the tour, the recording of the tour they did on the Moving Pictures, from the Moving Pictures album. So if All the World's a Stage showed Rush in its infancy and raw power, Exit Stage Left shows Rush as a polished and potent act. That was my initial response. I said the audio is much richer. The set list covers much of their new material, but dips back into Fly By Night and the B-side of 2112 with Passage to Bangkok. And I tell you, after we talked about that,
yes,
I cannot hear that song without thinking of all the good weed those guys bought in all those places.
All of those places.
That's a great jam, man.
Yeah, I was just telling that to Mrs. Montag in the car. I was telling her that story. She was laughing. And I said, so I'm playing that song and I'm like singing the lyrics to her. She's like, oh my God. I go, yeah, they got pot everywhere, man. These guys
everywhere.
I'm like, man, I gotta go to these places and get some pot. Daddy, Alex,
it's a travel log.
you gotta take us on the tour, man. You gotta tell us where these places.
Hook me up, Dad.
Get the best weed.
Yeah,
Seth
that was
Rogen,
one of the best
listening.
nuggets I'd found.
I love Brunsbane leading into the trees. And it's a gorgeous little acoustic piece. And I know Lifeson does something like that where he adds a brand new guitar solo as an intro in a later album that we'll be discussing, a later live album. And I think the version of Xanadu here is the perfect live version. Like, it's haunting. It's just so powerful and moving, La Via Strangiato, it played live. It's this perfect closing track. It's showcasing Rush's remarkable musicianship. I mean, this album sounds, you get a really good indication of why these guys are so good, because here they're playing this live, everything live, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah, such a great set list. I mean,
I had that too. Great set list.
I guess if I had any complaint whatsoever about this album, and this is really just a quibble, that the mix is maybe a tiny bit dry. Like, I would like to hear a little more ambience with it, maybe a little more crowd noise, but even that's not to the point where it feels suffocating. Like, I've heard some live albums that almost feel suffocating because they're so dry, and they really cut out the audience. So it's still there, so I mean, and that's a quibble. Like, this is such a good live album. It would be a great, just give this to anybody that wants to, enjoy the golden era of Rush, and let them throw this on. And
along those lines, Dreadbull, though, you said kind of dry. I found the mix through this again, like kind of buried sound, especially the guitars during the rhythms. Even hard to hear Geddy's intros or monologues at times. I thought I put it as a quiet live album, but great set list. I personally prefer All the World's a Stage over the rawness and everything else.
Oh, interesting.
That's just
I do love the drum solo in YYZ. I mean, it is this drum solo. I was listening to it the other day, and I'm like cranking it up, like, because it's been a while since I'd listened to Exit Stage Left. Although this was the very first album I ever heard from Rush. Back in the day, I was probably 16 and going to one of the other drummers in band, playing D&D at his house. The first time playing D&D. He's a huge Rush fan, so he's playing this, and I'm like, oh, and I had recognized Spirit of Radio. I'm like, oh, okay, I know these guys. This is Rush, huh? And I'm just listening to it and like, oh my God, this drum solo was amazing, and so I just became enthralled. And that was all it took, man. And
man. That's great.
So my very first Rush listing was this. I think it's like you said, Dreadbull, you can just give this album to anybody and they're going to come away being Rush fans,
Yeah, how could you not?
It's not like I want to put it in and listen to it. It's just I have a little production issue with the production. Other than that, great set list, the YYZ solo, all the other highlights. Yeah, it's still there. It's Rush, man. So you can put a jam to it. All Rush, all the time. Right?
Yeah. I don't know if they remastered it. Maybe a remastered version would sound better to your ears.
Yeah.
You know?
Just on my ears. That's
Right.
what I got.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
my
Well, I think we all have that. You know, those things. I don't. I think the sound is sound. It sounds good, and I like the video that accompanies it. You know, there's a concert video where you can see the stuff while they're playing. You know, Red Barchetta and those kinds of songs. You know, and you can see how young they are. Neil Peart's got that great kind of blood red drum kit. You know, like kind of muted maroon, but he's he has all the physical percussion. You know, the tubular bells and the chimes and the wood blocks and the temple blocks and the beltry and everything, the real xylophone. Now it's all electronic triggers and things like that. But it was just, I mean, this mammoth kit that he would have to stand up and play the chimes, for Closer to the Heart. He would grab that mallet and do this. Or on Xanadu, he just had that one bell, ting, ting. It's like, my God. This band's up and down all over the kit, this gigantic kit, He always, Montag, he always seemed to have just a massive, impressive kit. No matter what time you saw him live, you were always impressed by Neil's kit. It's just, it's a thing of beauty. Oh yeah. And I liked that it got so big that they had to have a stage that turned around. Just it's a 360-degree drum kit.
Oh my God. Oh.
It reminds me of at one point Portnoy with Dream Theater had a kit. His kit got so big that he had to have 2 chairs. He would move to a different seat. He said he had to grow a second ass just to play this whole kit. It was like the two-headed monster at the something, I think he called it.
Yeah, it was mammoth.
Just ridiculous. Yeah. So yeah.
Wow.
Mike Portnoy, if you're listening, we want to talk with you. Mike Portnoy, please come on our show.
I'd like to hear more about that. I'd like to hear
tell
more
us about
your
the
second
giant,
ass.
second ass and the giant drum kit. Mike Portnoy.
Right.
Oh man. Wow. This golden age of Rush. Very few bands, I think, a lot of bands who we like and who go through a time where they have a certain sound that we really like. Maiden's kind of done that. Other bands that we've enjoyed, but very few bands can boast in these 4 albums. They have better music than other bands' entire discographies. And I can't say enough good enough about Rush. I mean, this is a reason why they're my favorite band, and I just really just admire them and love their music, and I'm so glad to be able to share this with you guys and talk about it and to realize that I'm not the only one who sits back and goes, yeah, I can just put this album on, and how it moves me emotionally still to this day, like with you, Dreadbull, these other albums. It's just, good music is good music. And Rush is one of those bands that thankfully will be around long after we're gone. You know
what? You guys joke with me at times. I'm the idiot savant of music. Whatever the fuck you guys want to bust my balls about. But
we're focusing on the savant part, not the idiot. Okay, so. But
you know what gets me is I'm learning a lot more. I'm going back on our 80s and 90s list. You're bringing up bands that I haven't listened to it, and I'm like, I'm finding myself going back. I'm like, my God, this is great music. I haven't, and thank you. That's part of the whole pleasure of this and doing this show with you guys. So
that's been a great part of this, or listening to bands that we kind of missed back in the day. Go back wow.
Dreadbull got me back in Halloween again. Listening to them and getting their new album. I'm like, oh my gosh, great.
I gotta get that new one.
Oh, beautiful.
Halloween. Love those guys, man.
Yeah, dude. Oh man. Yeah, you guys, like I said, you got me back into Sabotage. I just got a lot of Sabotage lately. I'm rebuilding my Sabotage collection.
That's one band I never quit listening to. I break out Sabotage on a pretty regular basis.
Yeah, man. Oh my gosh.
Lydia loves them too, so we'll listen to it together while we're playing video games or something. She'll like, put on some music. I'm like, what do you want to hear? Let's listen to Sabotage, Nice. So it's one of her favorite bands too. So
awesome.
I remember listening to the Hall of the Mountain King with you, Dreadbull, up in your room.
Uh-huh.
You know,
What a great album.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic album. Right.
Sea Rock Days. You know, that
Yes.
opening riff.
Oh my God.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
really appreciate, though, guys, especially with the Rush stuff, but also
Mhm.
just in general. Just I wanted to say that I'm rediscovering some bands I lost touch with, where I just they kind of went away from me.
Yep.
And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh my God, this is great. Annihilator, Montag talk
Yeah.
about Elephant Hell. I'm like, oh my God, it's a great album.
I'd
So, yeah.
I'd never listened to their music before that. And I'm like, I got to go get the rest of their stuff now. It's like, wow, this is really good. And
Yeah.
I guess what's wonderful about this, Chop Top, you're pushing us into new music that we had never listened to. And we've all gone through things where we get into ruts. Like,
Mhm.
I want to listen to this, or we go into phases. Like, there are certain times, like, as much as I love Dream Theater, I'll put them on, like, I'll like it. I've not been in a Dream Theater mood.
Mhm.
I've been in moods for, like, Opeth or Ginger. Like, okay, I'm really digging these guys, and then it'll change. I'll get to the point where, okay, I need something different.
Yeah.
But going back and, like, when you revisit these songs, you're like, okay, this is why I like these guys.
Yeah.
And fortunately for me, Rush has never been, like with you with Sabotage, Dreadbull. This is one of those bands where it never leaves my playlist. I may not play them every day, but they're there.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, Rush, the golden age of Rush. I think that
What an era.
kind of a nice book into that. And our next, I have no idea what I'm going to call the next. I think I might make some kind of reference to keyboards or synthesizers or something for the next era.
It's a pretty heavy synth era.
The synth heavy years. Synth under pressure, maybe.
Yeah.
That's
pretty good.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So just hey, our next topic is going to be the next era of Rush. We're going to cover everything from Signals to A Show of Hands, and I think it's a nice bookend. These live albums kind of signal the end. Well, literally, signal the end of these eras, I think. And I'm sure it's contractually a band puts out records, they go tour, and it's they have 5 albums to do for a contract, and they do 4 studio albums. They say, well, let's put out a live album. We don't have to record more. And as a fan, I love hearing live albums. I want to hear these bands in different eras. I want to hear them play. And if I can't ever see them on tour, or especially when I have seen them on tour, like we'll talk about down the road, that we've all seen Rush together. I love hearing those albums. Like, I was there. I was at Time Machine. I was there. Or,
So awesome, dude.
yeah, but just to relive those moments. But there's something about live music, and Rush is one of those bands that get better. They are more potent live than they are in a studio, and they're fucking monsters in the studio. So it's just a testament to who they are as musicians. So
All right.
I got nothing more.
No, me neither. Wow, it's late.
Yeah, it's late. So hey,
late.
right. Well, where are we gonna? You can find Heavy Metal Horror on unsaneradio.com. You can listen to full episodes or download to your device. You can find us on Facebook, Heavy Metal Horror Podcast. On Instagram, look for Montag Lewis, one word. And on our brand new YouTube page, Heavy Metal Horror Podcast. Don't forget Heavy Metal Horror, the best podcast you've never heard of, right? Never listened to? Is that what
Never
my
heard
girlfriend
of.
said?
Yeah.
Never heard of.
Never heard of. That's right. Take
Never
that.
heard of it. Never heard of it.
You will now. Anyway, this has been Montag, Master of Illusion.
Chop Top.
And the Dreadbull.
And you have been listening to Heavy Metal Horror.
All right, gentlemen.
This is Doug Helvering, and you have been listening to Heavy Metal Horror, the best podcast that you've never heard before.